This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Friday, the 17th day of June in the year 2022. I'm Gordon Mosley, and here's what we're tracking tonight. 1 week after the U.S. announced the removal of COVID-19 testing requirements for persons traveling to the U.S., the Guyana government has followed suit. In a statement today, the Ministry of Health announced that with effect from Saturday, persons traveling to Guyana will no longer be required to provide proof of a negative COVID-19 test result. However, all travelers must show proof of being fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The move by the Ministry of Health comes as it continues to try to get more persons vaccinated against the virus as cases continue to climb. More than 86% of Guyana's adult population has received at least one shot of the COVID-19 vaccine, while 67% of the country's adult population is now fully vaccinated. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony explained the decision made by the ministry.
We felt very comfortable that we can now remove the requirement for antigen or PCR testing. However, we will still maintain for travelers into Guyana, we'll still maintain that they have to produce their vaccination cards before they're allowed on the plane. So that we still have that requirement.
Last weekend, Guyana started the vaccination of children between the ages of 5 and 11 years old. And based on the last COVID-19 report, there are more than 900 active cases of the virus in Guyana. The hospitalization rate remains very low. The pandemic has claimed more than 1,200 lives in the country since its first detection 2 years ago. More news when we return.
How fast is fiber? Think fast. GTT Fiber has 3 packages with download speeds of 50, 100, and 150 megabits per second. That's fast enough to stream movies and music, to chat with Gran and Fran, to study, and more. What would you do? Upgrade to GTT Fiber today and don't get left behind tomorrow.
Doors and windows, Republic. Rooms and more, Republic. A brand new rug on the floor. Come to Republic, come to Republic. Whatever you need, you got it. Come through and get your mortgage. Live the dream with Republic.
95 to 100% financing, 50% waiver of negotiation fees, plus one lucky person gets their mortgage paid in full. Turn someday into today. Talk to Republic Bank about your low-cost mortgage today.
Drivers, need to renew your motor vehicle license? Skip the lines and save time by using the GRA's License Revenue Office drive-through facility, located at the GRA's parking lot, Camp and Lamaha Streets. Simply present your expired motor vehicle license and a copy of your motor vehicle registration at the front window, pay and uplift at the second window, and drive on your way. It's that easy. The LRO opens Monday to Thursdays from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and Fridays up to 2:30 p.m. GRA, your partner in development. A compliance certificate and a liability statement confirms that you have met the requirements under the Income Tax Act. If you want to bid for a government contract, sell or buy land or property, you must first obtain a compliance certificate. If you want to apply for a small business loan, claim your pension benefits, gratuity, or obtain a firearm license, then you must first obtain a liability compliance. Find the liability and compliance application forms and the requirements for application online at gra.gov.gy. GRA, your partner in development.
Get in the game with Buster. Win a full gaming setup, Xbox X, gaming chair, gaming speaker and headset, or any of over 60 weekly prizes like Oculus Quest 2, Mini 2 drone, Nintendo Switch, and many more top gaming prizes. Check below for details.
Faced with mounting criticism from the trade unions and the opposition over not implementing the minimum wage increase for the private sector, President Irfaan Ali last evening announced that the cabinet has finally come around to supporting the $60,000 per month minimum wage. The president made the announcement as he addressed the Enmore Martyrs commemoration ceremony last evening.
The cabinet has agreed with the recommendation of the tripartite group, and we are in support of the minimum wage that is going to be established. That is the 60,000 minimum wage. So you are pushing it open doors. We are friends of the workers. We are not enemy of the workers. We want what is best for the workers.
President Ali did not say when the new minimum wage for the private sector will take effect. Back in January, a tripartite committee agreed to have the private sector minimum wage increased from $44,200 to $60,000 per month. But there was no movement over the past months to give effect to the recommendation, and that incensed the unions. The business community had been pushing back against the increase in the minimum wage, pointing to losses incurred as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the slow recovery of businesses. Last week, the Federation of Independent Trade Unions in Guyana hammered the government for the delays in increasing the minimum wage. And earlier this week, the opposition leader Aubrey Norton also called out the government over the long delay. The president of the Guyana Agricultural and General Workers Union, GAWU, C. Paul Narine, has issued a call for there to be changes at the top management at Gaisuco. The calls by Narine come as Gaisuco recorded its lowest first crop performance in history. It has been almost 2 years, and the CEO of Gaisuco, Sage Narine Singh, who had promised to turn the industry around, is finding it difficult to make sugar sweet again. And that has led to the GAWU president calling for him to go.
As we consider the recently concluded first crop, it simply was an appalling performance, the lowest first crop output in the history of the corporation. We have heard the explanations of weather, labor and machinery. Such rationales, we contend, are over-exemplified to obscure the real issue, which is poor leadership and management of the industry.
The GAWU president made the comments yesterday at the Enmore Martyrs commemoration.
However, we say to you, sir, action must be taken as a matter of urgency. We cannot allow the slide to continue. As the saying goes, heads must roll, and this should start from the topmost executive.
And even in the president's speech, the president spoke of how it appears to be a division within the management of the sugar industry, and that is hurting the sustainability efforts. Narine contended that things have gotten so bad in the industry that workers' credit union savings deducted from their wages are not being remitted. He said it was pleasing to see that the president has issued a stern warning to the corporation's management. Well, the president has announced his intention to name an international team to conduct a commission of inquiry into the March 2020 general and regional elections. The commitment was first made during the president's inauguration address back in 2020, following the 5-month agonizing wait on the final election results. Last week, GCOM chairperson Justice Claudette Singh disallowed a proposal by the opposition members on the commission to have an internal probe of the elections. Last evening, the president announced that a commission of inquiry into the elections will take place, and he intends to name the international members of that commission as early as next Tuesday.
Your president promised an international COI. So I'd say to all those who struggled and sacrificed, all those who worked in protecting the democracy that we have, in your honor, before dawn on Tuesday, your president will name the members of that international COI.
According to the president, the commission of inquiry will bring the matter to some finality, even as there is an election petition before the courts and former senior election officials are facing charges of alleged fraud.
And those who subverted democracy, and those who cannot present their SOPs, and those who struggled against the will of the people, the COI will set the truth free from the untruth. And the COI will set those who dwell in the house of democracy against those who dwell in the fire of undemocratic rule and norms.
The 2020 general and regional elections were marred with accusations of fraud and rigging attempts. The Minister of Human Services and Social Security, Dr. Vinay Prasad, has announced that persons who are living with HIV, cancer, or various disabilities will now all be eligible for permanent public assistance.
That public assistance will be provided to them for the rest of their lives. They do not need to be subjected to any other medical or any other tests going forward. This is something that's been very, very close to my heart, and it really puts much into the hands of persons who are living with disabilities.
Dr. Prasad was speaking at the relaunch of the night shelter when she made the announcement. It was explained that the move takes immediate effect, but persons need to be registered under the National Commission on Disabilities to begin benefiting from the initiative.
Of course, we'd like to put much more, but this is a step, because no longer will people have to go before the local board of guardians who have public disabilities. It's automatic. All they have to do is to register with the National Commission of Disability, and the ministry provide their application, and they're onto the public assistance register. This takes immediate effect right across the country, and it will include persons who are living with HIV and those who have cancer.
According to the Human Services Minister, the public assistance program will cover persons with physical as well as mental disabilities.
And I believe that this will help those who are in the caregiving world and care for children and adults, or adults who perhaps have the age of a child mentally, because we want to ensure that those persons who are living with disability understand the government of Guyana's commitment to them.
President Irfan Ali recently announced a $100,000 one-off cash grant for children living with disabilities. The registration for that cash grant is currently ongoing. Let's tell you now that the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, is urging Guyanese, especially men, to begin adopting and living healthier lifestyles. At the opening of a men's health exhibition and fair this morning, the minister raised concern about the abuse of alcohol, especially by men. He said many of them need to change their habits of consuming alcohol at every social event they attend.
Guyanese people love to drink, right? We go to any entertainment event. If you go to any sporting event, people got to take their drinks. You go to a dinner or something, you got to get drinks. You go to a celebration of somebody's birthday, you got to get drinks. You go to a funeral, they got drinks. But is the drinks healthy for you? Is the alcohol healthy for you? It's not. And that can lead to all kinds of complications. But yet, it is seen as if this is something that is normal. We have to start changing that type of behavior as well.
According to the health minister, while both men and women are in the habit of consuming lots of alcohol in Guyana, studies have shown that men are the leading consumers. He warned that there could be several health complications as a result of the alcohol abuse.
Many men are consuming or over-consuming alcohol. And in a lot of instances, alcohol, like any other substance, would lead to problems, because first, you start getting a psychological dependence, then eventually you get a physical dependence, and that's it. Without a shot in the morning, you can't move. Right? You got to get something to stabilize you before you can move on for the day. That's not how it's supposed to be, because many of these persons end up with cirrhosis of the liver. Many of them end up with all kinds of other complications, all of which we could have avoided.
Through the Men's Health Unit, the Ministry of Health intends to initiate a number of programs and initiatives to encourage men to stop substance abuse and live healthier lifestyles. During an operation at a number of high schools along the east coast of the Marara corridor, the Guyana Police Force discovered and seized a number of knives, screwdrivers, scissors, and a toy handgun from students. On Thursday, police officers from the division joined the Ministry of Education and teachers at the schools in the operation. In addition to the random searches, the police officers also conducted lectures at the schools, discussing a number of issues, including the consequences of crime and violence and being members of gangs, and the need to be more respectful to teachers. The students were also warned about loitering on the streets after school hours and taking offensive weapons to school. The Ministry of Education has turned to the Guyana Police Force to assist with the growing problem of fights and gang-related incidents in some of the nation's high schools. Last week, teachers at the Georgetown High School walked out of their classrooms in protest of threats that were being hurled at them by students and the presence of gangs in the school. The Ministry of Education has reminded that it has a zero-tolerance policy against violence and gangs in schools. Let's tell you now that the Guyana Defense Force has welcomed 211 additional soldiers to its service. The new recruits recently completed 12 weeks of intense induction training as part of the basic recruitment course. In a statement, the GDF said the training was designed to transform their minds and bodies while making them fit for a military career. A graduation parade was hosted for the new recruits on Thursday at Tacoma. There are 30 women among the 211 recruits, the GDF noted. Acting Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defense Force, Colonel Julius Skeet, while congratulating the new soldiers, firmly communicated the force's expectations of them. He reminded the recruits that their careers have only now begun, one which also brings with it much responsibility. He told them that this is where it really begins, and they will be seen as upholders of high values and standards, noting that the society will expect them to defend the territorial integrity of Guyana, and they will also be expected to show leadership in their homes and communities and be role models to youths everywhere. Private Tevin Williams, a resident of Upper Mazaruni, emerged as the best graduating student, while Private Shamar Stevens copped the runner-up prize. Mobil Special and all other Mobil lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc. Mobil Special and all other Mobil lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc.
Doors and windows, Republic. Rooms and more, Republic. A brand new rug on the floor. Come to Republic, come to Republic. Whatever you need, you got it. Come to and get your mortgage. Live the dream with Republic.
95 to 100% financing, 50% waiver of negotiation fees, plus one lucky person gets their mortgage paid in full. Turn someday into today. Talk to Republic Bank about your low-cost mortgage today.
Win a full gaming setup, Xbox X, gaming chair, gaming speaker and headset, or any of over 60 weekly prizes like Oculus Quest 2, Mini 2 drone, Nintendo Switch, and many more top gaming prizes. Check below for details.
Fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up, fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guy Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guy Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
A Across the region tonight in Barbados, Barbados Today reports that Prime Minister Mia Mottley has hinted at changes to legislation and the introduction of new policies to govern investment in and production of renewable energy in Barbados. She also suggests that the island was losing out big time on major investment opportunities due to cumbersome regulation and the slow pace of the regulator to make certain decisions. Prime Minister Mottley, who has identified energy security as a main element of the island's development needs, made the comments during a panel discussion on Thursday involving the managing director of the IMF. Pointing out that legislation seemed to be a hindrance to the development of the sector, Mottley said it was her view that perhaps the time has come for major regulation changes for the renewable energy sector to get needed investment in Barbados. The U.S. Virgin Islands government has announced that it will not be seeking an extension to the state of emergency beyond the end of this month. The government said it is using the next 2 weeks to wind down from the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. The governor, Albert Bryan, explained that the territory had entered the endemic phase of COVID-19. The state of emergency was called on the 13th of March 2020, when the first cases of COVID-19 were detected on the U.S. Virgin Islands. Since then, the territory has detected over 20,400 cases and 115 deaths. And finally tonight, international news. The BBC reports that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's extradition to the US has been approved by the UK Home Secretary. Mr. Assange has 14 days to appeal over the decision, the Home Office said. It said the courts found extradition would not be incompatible with his human rights, and that while in the US he will be treated appropriately. Mr. Assange is wanted by the American authorities over documents leaked in 2010 and 2011, which the US says broke the law and endangered lives. The WikiLeaks documents related to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The Australian is being held at a Belmarsh prison in London after mounting a lengthy battle to avoid being extradited. Extradition allows one country to ask another to hand over a suspect to face trial. Responding to the Home Secretary's order, WikiLeaks confirmed it would appeal against the decision. Mr. Assange's wife Stella said her husband had done nothing wrong and he has committed no crime. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight and this week. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting and encouraging you to stay safe.